We are joined now by Patricia and Martin Stantz, the parents of Harper Stantz, who died 6 months ago today. And I am just honored that you're able to join us this morning on the 6-month anniversary of Harper's passing. Thank you for being with us.
You're welcome.
You're welcome, Bob, and thank you for having us, and thank you for reaching out to us. As the last 6 months have passed, we just try to wake up every morning and just try to figure out how to get through each day. So we'll keep her memory strong, and the community's been wonderful to us. And as you could see, as you mentioned, they put a beautiful bench up at Recreation Park where Harper had played tennis moments before she was struck. So it's a beautiful dedication to her, and a lasting memory that people can sit on and think about Harper and just sit on and rest too at the park. So we're very honored.
I saw the bench yesterday afternoon for the first time. I had heard a few days ago that this project was nearing completion, and I know since last March, so many people in the community have been trying to come up with an appropriate way to honor Harper's memory and do it in an appropriate and a tasteful way. And it seemed to me when I first saw the bench, where it was at a city facility after it had been shipped up here, I think from Mississippi, it just moved me instantly to see it. And I thought that that probably is one of the nicest ways to keep her memory alive.
Absolutely. The folks from Teddy's Invitational Tournament got together with the Parks and Recreation, and they wanted to honor Harper, so they actually paid for the bench, and then the city and their workers from Parks and Recreation installed it. And it's, like you said, it's very tastefully done, and it's, she played on that tennis team for Binghamton High School, so they're in the middle of their season right now, so hopefully the girls can watch some of her teammates play as the season goes on. So,
Mrs. Stantz, you
Yes.
mentioned that you had a chance. You already have had a chance to sit on the bench, which overlooks the tennis courts at Recreation Park on Beethoven Street this morning.
I did, yeah. I was the first one. I wanted to be the first one, so, I was able to, and I got my picture taken and everything, sitting on it. So it's a great bench. It's beautiful.
What was that like? As I'm sure a lot of memories came flooding back to you of those 16 short years that you had to spend with Harper.
Gosh, I wish we had more time to have been with her. I know, she wasn't a very good tennis player, so she didn't want us to come and watch her matches. So what I would do is I would drive down Beethoven and park across the street to watch her. So she didn't know that I was actually watching her, but I was able to see her skills in action.
yeah. She enjoyed more of the camaraderie being on the team than actually the competition. So,
Well, and tell me about the friendship that she had with Brittany, because sadly, just minutes after they wrapped up playing tennis on the rec park courts, less than 2 blocks away, they were walking down the sidewalk, just heading toward Riverside Drive, and everything changed in an instant.
Yeah, they were best friends, and Marty and I knew we were going to Cancun, and we knew we had to have someone watch our kids. So we thought, oh, well, Brittany's of age. Let's have her watch you guys. So, they were super thrilled about it, and it was supposed to be a great time. It's the first time we ever left our kids, with someone else to watch them. So it was a first time thing, and we were only gone for 3 days. But Brittany and Harper hung out all the time. They were besties, and they would go on bike rides all the time, or go down and play tennis, and they're just good buds. So
Yeah.
we thought, we know we left our kids in good hands. It was just an unfortunate freak accident. Well, horrible accident that was caused by opiate abuse.
And we will talk a bit about that aspect in a moment, because the tragic circumstances there that happened on what was a beautiful afternoon. I remember it was a late winter afternoon, a Monday afternoon, and up to that point had been just a beautiful, unremarkable Monday.
Yeah.
But then the horror that happened there on Beethoven Street, and again linked directly to someone who, at that point, we now come to find out he was driving while impaired by heroin, and we'll talk about that aspect because it shows the toll that substance abuse is taking on our community, not just for those who are dealing with addiction, but on completely innocent people who are simply walking on the streets. And sadly, this wasn't the first time in that neighborhood. Just, I believe 2 years earlier, there had been a similar fatality on Main Street where someone was driving.
Right.
Well, she was driving, they say, while she was under the influence, and a man died near Tom's Coffee Shop. And that was just 6 blocks away,
Right.
also on a Monday afternoon.
And it's after school. I mean, I think maybe that, I don't know if that's part of why the community has been so impacted by this. It could have been anybody's child walking down the street after school that was killed. And, unfortunately, it was our child. But
Yeah.
it wouldn't have been good for anybody's child.
Oh, and these weren't students who were out going wild on a Friday night. I mean,
No.
let's face it, it's tough being a parent, and especially a parent of teenagers, and I'm sure most parents worry anytime that their sons or daughters are out at night, particularly on the weekend or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
But on a Monday afternoon, on one of the most tranquil, beautiful neighborhoods in Binghamton, it was, I would say, almost unimaginable that this could have happened.
It is unimaginable. Actually, we had a curfew. She always wanted to push back further. And we said no, because anything bad is going to happen at night if you're out.
After midnight, right?
After midnight, something bad will happen. So it's unprecedented that it would happen at 3:30 in the afternoon. So it's just...
Yeah, it's unfortunate. She was just, 3 houses away from our house, and so it's right on the corner where we live. And each day we have to walk by that corner, and it's, it tugs at your heart. That's for sure. Every day you walk by it, it's so unfortunate and so tragic that opioids, had an impact on a person like that, and they took over his life, and unfortunately took our daughter. So.
Let's talk just for a bit about how it was on March 11th when you learned that your daughter and her good friend had been hit by a vehicle near Recreation Park, and you were a long distance away from home. You were not in a position where you could immediately rush to your daughter's side.
Yeah, Patty and I had started out the day. We had, for the first time, a couples massage in Mexico. As Patty mentioned, that was the first time we'd been away since we had the kids, and it was started out a wonderful day. We had our massage, we worked out, we went on a bike ride into Puerto Morales, and we get back from the bike ride, and there's a note under our door, and it says, "You need to call home immediately." And our cell phones didn't work down there, so we had to run up to the front desk, and finally got somebody to connect to the United States, and we were trying to get a hold of my sisters that had called, and then the Binghamton police had called, and so we knew it was something quite serious. And then eventually we spoke to my sister Lisa, and she said that things weren't good, that she was in surgery, and they removed her spleen, Harper's spleen. Brittany was in very serious condition also. Her pelvis was shattered, and they were going to fly her to Syracuse. So it was frustrating because we couldn't talk to people because our phones weren't working. And then we ran into a couple from Boston that lent us their cell phone that was just wonderful people that they could see we were in tremendous stress. And so they allowed us to use their phone several times. And we got in touch, and we spoke to the doctors. We spoke to the Chief Ryan from the police, and my sisters. And from then it was just pure hell, just knowing we were stuck someplace and couldn't get home. We had to get a hold of the Delta Airlines and change our flight and get the fastest flight out. And basically we were able to do that, but it wasn't until 7 o'clock the next morning we could fly out. So we ran back to our room, we packed all our stuff, and we just sat there and prayed until 4 a.m. came and we could go to the airport. So it was so frustrating, so helpless she felt. And
It was a nightmare.
we didn't, we could just look up and just pray. And our
Yeah.
prayers were answered in a different way than we hoped, but she's at peace.
Has this had an impact on your faith? Obviously, you mentioned as soon as you heard about what happened that something terrible had transpired so close to home, and you were away, and you began praying. But over the last 6 months, and here we are talking 6 months later after she died on March 13th. Has it had an impact on your faith?
I think
as
it's
you
a
look back?
reassurance of my faith. She shows us every day that she's with us. She walks with me. When I have a really bad day, I go walking, and she shows me hearts everywhere I go. Also, when we were in the airport in Mexico, we were really a distance away from a wall, and knowing the grief we were going through, I kind of thought, like, why are we sitting here? Why are we in such a public area to be sitting? But we did. We sat there, and I looked across to this marble wall, and I kind of thought, what is that? And it was I thought it looked like a little girl in, like a, I don't know, how do I explain
A little
this?
girl picking flowers.
A little girl picking flowers with her head tilted in ponytails. So I thought, this is crazy. So I got my phone. I took multiple pictures. I'll show you later. And I took Marty's just to verify that this is actually what I'm seeing. This was her gift to us to say, Mom and Dad, I'm here. I'm traveling with you. I am good. Also, during everything that was going on, all her friends were in her bedroom, and there is an orb on her friend Kirsten's
Heart.
chest, like over her heart, and it's an orb that her friend Amira took the picture. She's like, oh my gosh, we have an orb. So it was really amazing. And I mean, there are so many different instances that Harper has given to us to say, I'm good, I'm okay, this is what God wanted. And she was able to donate her organs. And I mean, she visited my brother after she died, and he was praying because my uncle at the time had also just passed that same day. And she popped into him and said, hey, Jim. And my brother Jim said, Harper, what are you doing here? You're not supposed to be here. This is, like, he actually heard her voice. And he said, you have to go back. And she told him, she said, I can't go back because my body is too broken. And then she kept on coming to him during everything that was going on. So he knew she had passed. So just, she's given us so much to know that this is what God had planned.
We're speaking with Patty and Marty Stantz, the parents of Harper Stantz, who died 6 months ago. And we touched on the circumstances and the fact that another resident of Broome County, a man who lived in Harpersville, was driving a Jeep south on Beethoven Street at about 3:30 on a Monday afternoon, and that Jeep veered off to the side, veered onto the sidewalk, and struck Harper and Brittany. And ultimately, he has pleaded guilty to a charge of aggravated vehicular homicide. In July, he was sentenced to 5 to 15 years in prison. Let's talk about that, because he did make the appearance in court, and you and others had a chance to speak about the impact of his actions, what happened because of his choice that day to drive when he was not in a condition to be driving a vehicle.
Right. I don't even know what to say about that. I mean, I feel terrible for his parents. I mean, I know it wasn't done on purpose, but it still happened. I mean, he not only went on the sidewalk, he crossed over Beethoven to get to the other side.
Yeah.
So.
When we were in court, we heard some more details, and some of the first responders, the firefighters that were actually responding to a different emergency, kind of saw him nod off. And I think when he nodded off, he veered to the left and struck Brittany and Harper. But clearly he had an addiction that, I guess, from my understanding, was at one time under control. And then he had another accident in his mid-20s, and then was prescribed opiates again with pain, which led to eventually to him making the wrong choices and going back to heroin. But I don't know if there's any justice, Bob, or anything like that on this earth, but we certainly do feel for the impact it's had on his family, and it's been a tremendous impact on this whole community. From the get-go, people have been wonderful to us, and they've fed us, they've brought us all sorts of supplies, they've fed us for months actually, and children have been, the kids that some of them went to school with Harper, some of them she just knew through social media or other things. And they were wearing ribbons in their hair and flowers and yellow socks and things just to keep Harper's memory strong and show that of solidarity and the love that they cared for Harper. So we've been overwhelmed by it, but we're so honored and so appreciative.
And so many people have been touched. I mean, I was at the scene just a few minutes after it happened, and I could tell at that point this was going to be one of the more tragic stories that was starting to unfold just in the early stages, and that was unclear how things would end. Mm-hmm. But here, even 6 months later, it's just astonishing to think of how many lives have been disrupted since that terrible moment in the blink of an eye on March 11th, just steps away from the tennis courts at Recreation Park.
Yeah.
Yeah, it has impacted a lot of people, but as we mentioned, the community's been wonderful. We've gotten some beautiful portraits from some local artists. Peterson's commissioned Ryan Warner to do a beautiful large 5x4 portrait that's in our home now of Harper. I know there's Chelsea Snyder did a beautiful painting, and Bernard Muriel and Charlotte Ballman. They all did beautiful pictures that we have displayed in our home now. It's we try not to make it morbid, but we got to.
Well, it's a celebration, though.
Yeah.
And I, Mrs. Stantz, I appreciate that you shared yesterday the selfie that Harper took right after she had finished playing tennis with Brittany at the tennis courts. And although it's tremendously sad, it's also a reinforcement of who she was and how precious she was, even to those who never had a chance to meet her.
Yeah, she was a great spirit. She just would walk into the room and bring happiness into it. Usually.
Well,
she was a teenager.
Hey, none of us are perfect, and we were all teenagers once too. And I think we all go through different phases, and that's all part of the complexity of life too. And we celebrate all aspects of it. And we also, one of the things that I suppose we can take away from this is to embrace every day and appreciate every day that we have, because we don't know. We truly don't know how much time we have in this life to be able to share these times with our family, with our friends, and just with people in our communities.
Yeah. Harper's motto was, when she'd show up at a party, she'd say, "I'm here for a good time, not a long time." So how true that really is. So we should enjoy each moment and love the ones that are around you and treat everybody with respect.
Well, as I've mentioned on the program this morning, I think it would be very important for people, whether it's today or this weekend or at least in the days ahead, to take a walk or a drive down Beethoven Street near the park and take a look at the bench. Also take a look at the tree. That tree is a special tree that was planted recently, a northern redbud tree.
Right. My best friend Kim Baylor and her sister Lisa and their father Frank Baylor donated a certificate to buy a tree in honor of Harper. So that's a gift from them. We wanted to get a dogwood, but they said it wouldn't live in the sun. So we
The tree
changed our
has
mind.
hearts.
Yeah.
The leaves are shaped like hearts, so that we thought that was appropriate since the yellow hearts and the purple hearts have been passed around after Harper's passing. So I send most of my texts and end them with a yellow or purple heart. So
So
Yeah.
the tree is there, and it will continue to grow in the coming years. And
Correct.
this morning, in addition to the newly installed yellow bench that bears the statement "Harper M. Stantz forever in our hearts," there is a beautiful wreath as well with her initials HS.
Yes. Well, I mean, we put that up for the Music in the Parks Fest, and no one's taken it down yet, so
It's beautiful.
there.
It's beautiful, and it's fitting, especially on this particular day.
Thank you.
Patty and
Yes.
Marty Stantz, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much for having us.
Bob, thanks for having us, and we want to once again thank the whole community for helping us get through each day, and God bless you. Thank you.
Harper Stantz will always be in our memory.
Harper diem.
Thank you.
Thank you.